Hello. I don't see a big crowd. I think that most of them are still hungover from yesterday. So, and those who are not, hopefully, this is going to be quite low-key. So, I'm Sally, and I'm leading Tekuno, which is a blockchain as a service platform to basically verify and amplify experiences through NFTs. I'm also the partnerships and BD lead for the Near Balkans Hub, and Tekuno is actually a spin-off project from the Near Balkans team hub, basically. Today we're going to basically go over the seismic shifts, the business and the social seismic shifts that led to the Web 2 to Web 3 transition, while also looking into the technological shift from a different angle. Just as a quick survey, there's not a lot of crowd here, but quickly, who from you is a casual investor in crypto? Okay. And what about builders, CTOs, engineers, developers? Okay. And how about on the operational building side, so CEOs of projects? Okay. And any casual observers? Skeptics? Oh, okay. So just as a disclaimer, this is going to be basically an opinion piece, so and not an introduction. I will connect more than I will explain. I will reference a few things, and I will, in the end, share a Tekuno QR code so you can scan it. So before we dive into the entire shift from Web 2 to Web 3, we have to touch upon, what is Web 2? And going a step backwards, what is Web 1? Going two steps backwards, the internet as a whole. So the internet is basically the wires and the networks. It basically gives and provides the basic communication between machines. And on top of the internet, we actually built the web. So when we go into Web 1.0, it is basically the very basic communication. It is the ability to take data from one machine and view it on the other. Some of the early Web 1.0 applications, at this point in time, we can even argue whether they are applications or not. But basically, you can see here some of them from the crowd. I assume, hopefully, some of you have interacted with these applications. Some of you probably have not. But they did, they are in the history of the web. This later evolved into Web 2.0, where basically you were able, at this point, the end user was able to not directly interact with the data, but interact with the application that facilitated the viewing of this data. So basically, the end user had to input before receiving an output. And these are the more common applications that you can see. And Web 2 became more interactive and on a read and write principle. This afterwards evolved into Web 3.0. With Web 3.0, different people emphasize different features of Web 3.0. I would emphasize on the fact that Web 3.0 is verifiable and self-sovereign. By that, meaning that you do not solely depend on a central provider when you would want to access this data, and it also means that you are in control of how this application can change moving forward. So basically, imagine something like Facebook or Twitter, but instead of one news feed algorithm, you get to choose your own. And we're currently working on something similar. So with my daily communication, I speak with developers, people in the startup industry, builders on an 80% basis. And there's usually, I always bring to them a very interesting, I reference a very interesting article called The Myth of the Infrastructure Phase. This was written in 2018. But it still holds grounds until today. And it's basically, there's a common idea, there's a common perception among, and we're focusing at the moment on the people in this industry. There's a common perception that you need to develop infrastructure before you develop the applications that are on top of this infrastructure. And there's, many examples. There's better base chains, interchain, interoperability, which our colleague Vikas touched upon yesterday. There's wallets, and so on and so forth. So this article does it does a great job at actually dismantling this perception through using basically logic and examples. And it provides a counter argument. It says that apps inspire infrastructure and not the other way around. So usually they claim that platforms evolve in a way. It's usually the app, and then the infrastructure, then the app again, then further infrastructure, so on and so forth. And I would highlight a very interesting fact, the fact that, for example, the light bulb was invented before the electric socket. So back then, whatever electric appliances that people had, they had to unscrew the light bulb and put it into the electric thing for the light bulb, and then they could actually use their appliances. Another thing is airplanes were invented before airports. Going into the more specific use cases, the first internet applications such as messaging and email. They were created before the Ethernet, TCP/IP, internet service providers, and so on. Something more recent was actually Snapchat in 2011 and Instagram in 2016, which basically facilitated the creation of Zigyo and Twilio, respectively. Going into the more specific use case of Web3, we take Bitcoin for an example. We assume that Bitcoin is the breakout app, which came up in 2008, and that basically inspired the creation of infrastructure, which is basically the side chains, the drive chains in 2015, the Ethereum smart contracts, ERC20, Lightning, and so on. And after that, this actually enabled a new wave of applications, the tokens and the ICO rush in 2017. Some examples are like Roulette, VDICE in 2016, CryptoKitties in 2017, and so on. And that afterwards actually enabled the creation of better infrastructure. So we had Infura in 2018, Web3.js, Zeppelin, and so on and so forth. So the idea here is that apps inspire infrastructure, and then this infrastructure enables better apps, and then it's just a cycle. And what is the relevance? The relevance is that you should not expect to see the most obvious things being built as infrastructure, but you should actually expect to see the things that will become incredibly common, showing up in a few specific applications before these universalize. And we take another example, Figma and Google Docs. This is something that is usually, for example, I would say very underemphasized in Web3, but I will take first the Web2 example. With Figma and Google Docs, you basically, nobody goes on Google Docs just to check the fonts there, or to stare at a blank document. You actually go to these applications because you have the ability to work with other people on specific projects, And this is the reason that people actually go to these applications. And this is actually where the power of Web3 lays, because you can interact with other people on your own terms instead of the terms of Google or someone else, for example. And this also shows us that now there has, I mean, the tendency, these social shifts have started. So there is a tendency to move, basically, from end users being consumers to actually becoming prosumers. And by prosumers, I mean users that are not just consuming, but also producing content. We can, I mean, this is also clearly evident through YouTube and Instagram. I mean, the rise of this creator content community. And then there's also privacy concerns to data sovereignty. This is also, I mean, has become visible when we speak of the social shifts. Only last year was there was this big PR crisis with Amazon. They gave the Ring videos to police without owners' permissions. And this is, again, it highlights the benefits of Web3 as opposed to Web2, because users are the owners of their data. Which also gets us into the business shifts. Because I mentioned that users are the owners of their data. So, so these economies change from basically ad-based to token-based. In Web2, companies collect user data because they would want to target ads more effectively. In Web3, users become rewarded for their contributions to the ecosystem with tokens that have, I mean, in theory, real-world value. And then there's other also, let's say the major business shifts for now. It's basically moving from monopolies to distributed marketplaces. And by monopolies, I mean, at the moment in the Web2 sphere, there are 2, 3, 4 companies that monopolize the market: Google, Amazon, and so on. While moving into Web3, this hopefully becomes more distributed. It's still quite immature. It's still quite an immature market, but the idea and the target is to actually go into more distributed marketplaces and businesses. And then we touch upon decentralized finance, which is basically the ability to facilitate peer-to-peer financial transactions in a way in which, let's say, we democratize finance, but it's also a way in which we remove the gatekeepers, which are the banks, financial institutions, brokers, and so on. Then also there's the concept of smart contracts, which facilitates and not only which sets the cornerstones for these business relationships, but it also facilitates the execution. And here we can go into many use cases, such as real estate, going into the real estate business, going into the sphere, and other use cases as well. And the last, which I am still quite skeptical about, is basically DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations. Which basically, I mean, the target there is actually to facilitate, to democratize, to remove the control from one central entity or person or group, and make it more, let's say, stable in a way. And for me, these are the three major business shifts. I'm sure that with moving more in time, we will witness much more. But at this point, these are the 5 major business shifts that can actually pave way into further adoption. And this is it. I see that also my time's up. Thank you for listening. And this is a QR code for the application that we're working on. Tecuno, you guys can scan it, try it out, and actually expect rewards from it as well. Thank you.